Right, okay, it's day 6. And nothing planned this time. The last two were quite um, in depth, weren't they? I even had props for the last one. Um, I was about to go ballistic at Jeremy Corbyn, and then I did some research and found out that what he had said was actually been taken out of context. Um, so, just to explain that, before I say any more, can I make it quite clear that when on day 4 I said, join me next time and I'll be drinking um, 20 tequilas a day for a month to raise awareness of liver disease, that was a joke. It's a joke. The only reason I'm outlining that now is because I'm now going to speak in favour of alcohol, and I'm not an alcoholic. I haven't had a drink since Monday, and it's a late day later in the week now. Friday is it? I don't know. Would suggest that I had some sort of problem, but no, alcohol's not the problem. Making movies on my camera is the problem. That's what's caused me to lose track of time. Um, so, what allegedly he said is that after work drinks was discriminating against women because it's men that don't have to worry about looking after children or they're having drinks, or women have to stay at home and look after the kids, which in itself would be very sexist, um, because it would sort of imply that only women care about childcare, and it almost implies that only men work. If you go to any after dinner after work drinks, you'll know that in fact there's a fair gender mix. It's not just all men. But what he'd actually said was that there was a culture. I don't know if this is true or not. He's saying there was a culture where people gain promotion by schmoozing with the boss at the after work drinks. And he didn't use the word schmoozing. I did just then. It's a bit of an Alan Sugar. I can forget his name now. Alan, what's his name from The Apprentice? Alan Sugar. Word schmoozing, isn't it? I like schmoozers. Yeah, so what he'd actually said was people schmoozing with the boss, and getting promotion, that would in some way unfairly discriminate against women, of course, who wouldn't have the opportunity to schmooze with the boss after work drinks, whereas guys would. He wasn't talking for saying Swift off before we go home, Harry. Yeah, right, so let's Swift off. So I would be very angry if he was, because I think one of the issues for men, if we're talking about male suicide, one of the issues for men is social isolation. Men don't social network with quite the efficiency that women do, and that can leave us isolated at times. And alcohol is a social lubricant, and it's very strange when you get people that they say they're against male stoicism, and then they're against alcohol too. Well, alcohol it's the antidote to male stoicism. That's why we drink alcohol, is to take the armour off. There's been times when I have got something majorly off my chest that's been weighing me down for not just months, years, and it has finally come off my chest because I've had a few pints inside me. So when I'm talking in favour of drinking, this is not because I'm an alcoholic, it's because I genuinely think that there's a social benefit to drinking that is grossly underestimated by those that are puritanically anti-alcohol. And there is very much a benefit to saying Swift off before we go home, Harry. Although not if your workmate's name's not Harry, because he won't know who you're talking to. And I've never worked with anyone called Harry, to my knowledge. Unless I have, in which case I'm really sorry, Harry. I've forgotten you. I you were Henry once, but not that well. So much of the social discourse being monopolised by virtue signallers is, when it comes to advocating in favour of anything that's pleasurable, it feels like you're incriminating yourself by advocating in favour of it. I'm advocating in favour of alcohol, and had to put a little disclaimer at the beginning there saying, hey, I'm not an alcoholic, you know. Which means that those that are against pleasurable things, you can think of your own examples. Pornography, alcohol, drugs, video games. Anyone advocating in favour of them, well, that's purely selfish. You're being purely selfish because you're just talking in favour of pleasure. Completely libertine. Whereas those that are telling us to give up things, or cake, so give up sugar, they can seem virtuous because they're asking us to give up things, and that's always a thing of religions as well. So religions are always telling us to avoid doing things. There's always thou shalt nots and never thou shalt. Anyone advocating in favour of pleasure is seen as dangerous. Anyone advocating against pleasure are demonstrating their own virtue. But if we're talking about depression and suicide, hey, you know what? One of the symptoms of depression is not being able to experience pleasure. Is giving up pleasurable things, not being able to take pleasure in things. Associating pleasure with guilt is not going to reduce the levels of misery in the world. So to a certain extent, yeah, you need to stand up against people that are just clearly anti-pleasure. Temperance movements, ban this, ban that, down this sort of thing. Fuck you. I'm pro people enjoying themselves. I've just realised how much I sound like I'm a member of Spinal Tap in that clip. Nigel Smalls or someone. No, this is a serious thing. And just to back me up a little bit on it, I'm going to get somebody else to speak that doesn't sound like they're a member of Spinal Tap. So this is from Battle of Ideas, which is a great little YouTube site. Battle of Ideas, because it has a very broad range of different opinions expressed, and some of them are ones that you won't hear in the mainstream. And they all speaking to each other respectfully, which makes a change, doesn't it? And yeah, you'll hear opinions that you perhaps don't hear very often in the mainstream. And this one is called The End of Boozy Britain ? And this is somebody in the audience speaking out in favour of pub culture, and particularly with reference to how important pub culture might be to men.
I wanted to make a point actually on what you said about whether or not coffee shops can replace pubs, and it kind of leads on to another point I wanted to make and a question I had. I spent a long time working in pubs, and there's this particular time of the day when men come in when they've finished work, and they use it as a time to kind of wind down and work out, how they're going to go home or kind of get their work day and also socialise. And I think I learned that it's very important for men to have that social space. If you were to replace that with coffee shops, the way a pub is laid out, it allows an individual to walk into a space because most of it's standing. In a cafe, everybody's sat down, so you're in a group environment. The cafe can never replace the social element of a pub for an individual, and I think the biggest people who suffered in the pubs closing down and it becoming less and less acceptable to go to pubs are actually men, and the kind of mental well-being I think that men drew from having a place where they could go.
What I found interesting watching that little clip again was, even though I knew exactly what she was going to say, which was going to be very pro-male, despite that, when I heard her say the word men, I stiffened up and I thought, oh my god, what's she going to say? Because it's just a reflex, a Pavlovian learnt reaction that any sentence that includes the word men is going to be something bad. There's going to be some form of psychological punishment involved. Like it's the swear word, men. Anyway. Which brings me to something that does actually concern me about what Corbyn said. I mean, I get it. If it discriminates against parents, like mothers, Jeremy, if you're going to be sexist, it does discriminate against parents who have to rush home to look after their kids if after work drinks are actually being used to get promotions. However, I would say if after work drinks is something you do purely to get promotions, you could live a pretty miserable life, haven't you? If that's your be all and end all in life, is to get a promotion, you can't just let your hair down. But the other thing is, he said it benefits men, in as if that's a bad thing. As if it's a bad thing to benefit men. How long are we going to keep going? How long are we going with this sort of attitude that anything that benefits men must be bad? Some things will benefit men, and as I say, I'm advocating the calm, which is the campaigning against living miserably, which benefits men. Oh no, shit! Does it benefit men? Also, in his rhetoric, he always says equality for women, which is a strange phrase when you think about it. Equality for women, not equality between the sexes. If you've got an equation, you've got two sides to that equation. If you've got equality on one side, you've got equality on the other side, right? That's how equality works. So why are you saying equality for women and not equality between the sexes? And the thing is, if he's playing up to this the women have it worse crowd, bear in mind some of his worst political enemies have been from this particular the women have it worse crowd, including Jess Phillips, who cackles at the idea of a discussion on male suicide. So as much as I love Jeremy Corbyn, I think he's brilliant, I think he's fantastic. There's a move to actually deal with issues of financial, economic inequality in society. I'm very much in favour of Corbyn, but I find his gynocentrism a little disconcerting. If you were just going to after work drinks to secure promotion, you probably find it a lot easier to justify it to yourself morally, particularly if you have family at home, particularly if you have people that need supporting. Whereas if you were going to drink for social reasons, which would be of more benefit to yourself in terms of mental health, you probably find that harder to justify. And your partner would probably feel the same way. Where you're saying, I had to stay, I was going to have a drink to the boss because I think I might be in a chance of promotion. She'd probably be okay with that. Whereas, you know, it's her income too, right? She's that's what you earn is gonna relate to what kind of holiday you'll be able to offer her come summer or whatever. Whereas if you're going, I had just a few drinks with Barry because Barry said, "Do you want to go for a drink?" I went, "Yeah, all right." She might not be so keen on that. So that's quite ironic, isn't it? You know, if men were only going for their after work drinks to get promotions, and that's pretty much the thing that's benefiting the most, really, is it? If you meet a rule of how well you're doing in life is what level you are at in some crappy company. Ah.
And then you get into some racket where you're selling insurance, and they've got that quota to make, and you're going to make that, and all the time this thing is coming. It's coming, it's coming, that great thing, the success you're working for. Then when you wake up one day about 40 years old, you say, my God, I've arrived. I'm there. And you don't feel very different from what you always felt. And there's a slight letdown because you feel there's a hoax. And there was a hoax. A dreadful hoax. They made you miss everything.
So there's a little bit of Alan Watts there. If you like a bit of Alan Watts, that's not the whole video, but I will link to the whole video. It's a nice little video to watch. I found his book, The Wisdom of Anxiety, actually helped me through my period of going through some mental health issues. And one of the issues I have with the concentrating on veteran suicides is it may actually discourage people for seeking help because they'll feel that their own mental health issues are not suitably dramatic if compared to someone who's seen combat. They might feel, oh, I'm not really worthy to consider my own issues to be important. Bearing in mind, of course, a feeling of not being important is going to be linked to depression anyway, isn't it? So it doesn't seem particularly helpful to say, well, these guys, they've earned the right to be significant. And even amongst the military themselves, as I say, survivor guilt is one of the things that those who've seen combat feel is other people died and they survived and they don't feel worthy because the people that died, they may consider to be better men than themselves. It's a very strange thing about survivor guilt. This is about, it should have been me. I should have been the one that died. So, this is from 2013, so it's not 100% up to date. But suicides amongst military veterans, though up slightly in recent years, account for a shrinking percentage of the nation's total number of suicides, a result of steadily rising numbers of suicides in the general population, according to a report released on Friday by the Department of Veteran Affairs. The report, based on the most extensive data the department has ever collected on suicide, found that the number of suicides among veterans reached 22 a day in 2010, the most recent year available at the time of going to press. So that's the 22 statistic that the press ups are based on. That was up by 22% from 2007, when the daily number was 18, but it is only 10% higher than in 1999, according to the report. So in 1999 it must have been 20 a day, which is the same as the most recent figure, which is for 2014, I think. Department officials describe the numbers as relatively stable over the decade. In the same 12-year period, the total numbers of suicides in the country rose steadily to an estimated 105 a day in 2010, up from 80 a day in 1999, a 31% increase. As a result, the percentage of the nation's daily suicides committed by veterans declined to 21% in 2010 from 25% in 1999. Now, the number of veteran suicides, to be clear, that went up during that time period. The reason that it shrunk as a percentage is because the civilian suicides went up by even more. So suicides are up on both, right? What's happening with veterans is a reflection of what's happening to America. Jan Kemp, the National Mental Health Director for Suicide Prevention at the Department of Veteran Affairs, said in an interview, the suicide rate in America has been creeping up. Dr. Kemp said that the fact that the veterans accounted for a smaller percentage of the nation's suicides suggests that improved outreach and suicide prevention programs might have had an effect. But other experts said that for a variety of reasons, including the fact that many veterans have access to health care through the department, the suicide rate for veterans should be much lower than it is. This remains a crisis, said Paul Sullivan, a founder of Veterans for Common Sense. The new report does not provide a suicide rate for veterans because the department is still refining that number, Dr. Kemp said, but she acknowledged that the rate was higher than for the general population, which is 12.4 suicides per 100,000 people. Dr. Kemp said that veterans tend to fall into higher risk groups, which include being male, living in a rural area, particularly in the West, and having access to firearms. Past reports on suicides among veterans have been based on data collected by the federal government from only about a third of the states. Because of growing concerns about veteran suicide, the department asked every state to provide data on veterans. The new report, which was previously described in the Washington Post, is based on a database built from information on more than 147,000 suicides in 21 states, a large enough number to develop accurate estimates for the entire veteran population, department officials said. Dr. Kemp added that the department now had data from 40 states and tentative agreements to receive information from the remaining 10. Among the report's other findings was that male veterans who commit suicide tend to be older than non-veteran male suicides, the largest number of veteran suicides occurring among men between 50 and 59. Dr. Kemp said the department intended to increase outreach to that age group. At the same time, the new data suggests that veterans under 30 are committing suicide in smaller numbers than their non-veteran peers. That would seem to contradict theories that the recent wars have contributed to increased suicide among new veterans. The fact that combat may contribute to suicide, I wouldn't dispute. What it's suggesting there is that the high level of suicides is not affected by combat. It's part of a general society-wide increase in the number of suicides. So here's my issue here. When I agreed to do this, and I felt it would be wrong of me not to, because I've been talking about issues revolving around male disposability for a while. I thought, well, this is certainly within my ballpark. This is certainly within the sort of thing that I keep talking about. I suppose I should put money where my mouth is. However, there's something I feel uncomfortable about the whole thing. Is if we're talking about male disposability and low feelings of male self-worth that coming from a society that is increasingly misandrous, what you're saying is that for you to become less disposable, you must first make yourself very, very disposable. I mean, joining the military, talking about putting your life on the line, and you're also talking about a training, because it isn't just the combat that causes mental health problems. Talking about training that involves depersonalisation and high levels of discipline, which involve stiffening oneself up and standing to attention and marching, and all this to remove one's individuality and make oneself worth less as an individual, to follow orders without thinking, training now using techniques that will make people able to shoot before they've managed to engage their conscience. And even before they see combat, they've already been psychologically damaged. And people have to go through all that before they're worthy of help. No, they should have help first. So yeah, I feel uncomfortable about making veterans a specific group. And bear in mind, of course, veterans are civilians. They're not military, they're ex-military. So many of the challenges that may be driving veteran suicides are the same challenges that are driving civilian suicides. So I'm going to carry on doing the 22 push-ups because I'm not. My dispute with the campaign does not stem from laziness. So these press-ups, I'm about to do 22 of. I'd recommend donating to Calm, and I'm advocating compassion for all men, regardless of whatever career path they've chosen. Right, here we go. Right, am I in there? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22,